Today, we're diving into a book that really gets under the hood of one of the most powerful and, let's be honest, often dangerous forces in all of human history, the mass movement.
It's a huge question, right? And you'd probably think the answer has something to do with their beliefs, their politics, their religion, their specific cause. But what if that's not the real story? What if the answer is something else entirely? Well, back in 1951, this incredible guy, an American social philosopher named Eric Hoffer, and get this, he spent years working as a longshoreman on the docks. He published a book called The True Believer, and it was totally radical. It looked right past all the flags and slogans to get at the type of person who joins a mass movement in the first place.
And this is where Hoffer drops his first real bombshell of an idea, the concept of the interchangeable fanatic.
See, Hoffer's big argument is that it almost doesn't matter what the movement is about. It could be religious, revolutionary, nationalist, right-wing, left-wing. The psychology of the person who joins is pretty much the same across the board. The cause is just a container, a vessel for a much deeper, more personal need. Hoffer gives this perfect, chilling example. Germany in the 1930s. You had the communists and the fascists, mortal enemies, but they were constantly recruiting from the exact same pool of angry, marginalized people. Leaders on both sides would even boast about how easy it was to flip a new convert from the other team.
And that really gets to the heart of it. It's not about the ideas. It's about the deep hunger to be part of a movement. These groups are competing for followers, like businesses compete for customers, and a frustrated person might find a home in any one of them.
Okay, so if the ideology isn't the main draw, then who exactly is this person who's so ready to be converted? Hoffer has a very specific profile in mind. He calls them the true believer. Now, this isn't someone with a strong sense of who they are. It's the opposite. It's a person who feels their own life is a total failure, that it's, in his words, irredeemably spoiled. So a mass movement comes along and offers the ultimate escape, a chance to just shed that failed self and be reborn as part of something grand and powerful. But here's a really crucial distinction he makes. It's not the poorest of the poor who are the most likely recruits. Someone who's just struggling to find their next meal is too busy trying to survive to be a revolutionary. No, Hoffer says the prime candidates are the new poor, people who used to have wealth or status and then lost it. They're just boiling with resentment and desperate to find someone to blame.
And the list of potential recruits just keeps going. Hoffer points to all kinds of misfits, basically anyone who feels alienated from the mainstream. You know, the chronically bored, the physically ill, people who feel they have no special talents, or even those who are just weighed down by a sense of guilt.
The one thing that connects all these different groups is this profound, gnawing feeling of worthlessness. A mass movement gives them exactly what their individual lives can't: a sense of purpose, a community, and a reason to hope. So, once a movement gets its followers, how does it shape them into this single, unified force? This is where Hoffer basically lays out the mass movement playbook. You'd think a movement's main job is to, achieve its goals. But Hoffer says no. Its number one priority is just keeping the group together and making sure everyone is ready for self-sacrifice. Everything else is secondary to keeping the group energized and united. And what's the absolute best way to unify a group? Give them a common enemy. Hoffer says that every successful mass movement needs a devil, because hatred is a much more powerful glue than love or shared values will ever be. And Hoffer says it bluntly: the best kind of devil is a foreigner. Why? Because they're so easy to cast as the other. Hitler's horrific portrayal of the Jewish people as these almost supernatural evil invaders is the textbook example of this terrifyingly effective tactic. Now, to keep believers in line, a movement has to shield them from reality. Hoffer describes this as building a fact-proof screen. First, you make faith more important than reason. Second, use exciting, emotional language that's also pretty vague. Third, you always have force and coercion ready to back it all up. And the fourth step is fascinating. You encourage members to go out and convert others, not so much to gain new members, but to strengthen their own shaky belief.
But these movements don't stay the same forever. They evolve. And Hoffer saw a very distinct life cycle driven by three totally different types of leaders.
It all starts with the men of words. These are the intellectuals who tear down the old system. Then comes the fanatic, a ruthless leader who harnesses all that anger and just thrives on chaos. And finally, if the movement is going to survive, a man of action has to take over. This is the practical leader who consolidates all that power and turns the fiery crusade into a stable, maybe even boring, institution.
And that final step is so important. Without that practical leader to make things permanent, the whole movement just burns out. Nazism, for instance, was so completely tied to its fanatic leader that it basically died right alongside Hitler.
So why are we still talking about this book more than 70 years later? Well, because its insights feel more relevant right now than maybe ever before.
I mean, after the 9/11 attacks, people ran out to buy this book to understand the psychology of fanaticism. A decade later, you had analysts using Hoffer's ideas to compare movements on opposite ends of the spectrum, like the Tea Party and Occupy Wall Street.
And the list of people who've read this book is just wild. It's been praised by people like President Eisenhower and Hillary Clinton, and it was also recommended by the Unabomber Ted Kaczynski. That right there tells you how powerful it is as a tool for analysis, no matter what your politics are.
And all of this leaves us with a final, really challenging question. When we see a mass movement that we disagree with, it's so easy to just attack the ideas. But Hoffer forces us to look deeper and ask, are we arguing with the cause, or are we just failing to see the frustrated, lonely person inside? The person whose search for meaning made them grab onto it in the first place. It's definitely something to think about.